What is an argument? Distinguishing arguments from other forms of communication. As you've learned, arguments have two parts, premises and a conclusion. But in order to actually have an argument, you also need to give reasons in defense or support of a particular conclusion. There must be a relationship or connection among these reasons, and there must be a relationship or connection between reasons and a conclusion. In this module, you will learn when an argument isn't actually an argument. You will learn more about how to identify arguments by learning how to distinguish arguments from other forms of communication. The just do it non-argument. Sometimes, when someone says they're making an argument, all they're really doing is listing claims or conclusions, without actually providing logic-based reasons for those claims. So, take for example the popular anti-drug campaign slogan, "Just say no." Now, you may agree that using drugs is bad. You may even be able to offer an actual argument in defense of that claim. But the single line, "Just say no," is not such an argument. It fails to provide any reasons for why we should accept the conclusion to say no. Another example of a non-argument, used as though it was an argument, is the often used parental declaration, "Because I said so." It's quite likely that you heard this from your parents as though it was a legitimate argument. Imagine how far you would have gotten by pointing out to your parents that, "Because I said so," isn't really an argument. It's quite likely that your parents didn't feel like they actually had to provide an argument. But the fact remains that, "Because I said so," does not provide a rational argument for the implied conclusion that you should or should not do something. Forms of persuasion. Arguments versus non-arguments. There are many ways that people use unsubstantiated claims when trying to get you to agree with them or to accept their point of view. Sometimes, people define arguments by saying that an argument is an attempt to persuade somebody of something. At this point, you know that definition is wrong. The goal of an argument is to prove or support a specific conclusion. If an unsubstantiated claim persuades people to agree, that's great, but it's not the primary objective. If someone actually makes an argument, they are making an appeal to reason. By definition, an argument requires reasoning. To make an argument, you must be able to say, to support my conclusion, I offer you reasons that can be evaluated for their truth or acceptability. Your reasons can also be evaluated based on their relevance to the issue and whether they are sufficient to justify the conclusion. Often, instead of providing logic-based reasons, people will try to get you to agree with them in other ways. They will use things other than rational claims to persuade you. The following examples are not arguments because they do not offer rational premises for the conclusion. Emotional appeals are one type of claim that isn't an argument. When people try to convince others of something by playing on their emotions, that is not an argument. They may try to get you to sympathize or feel bad for them, or they might bully you by getting angry or making you feel insecure about disagreeing with them. Or they might flatter you or try to offer some kind of reward for agreeing with them. Imagine a teenager trying to convince his parents to let him go to a party. "Please, I really want to go. You have to let me. If you don't let me go, I'll be so sad I'll never leave the house again." Clearly, there's no rational argument. He's trying to gain sympathy or pity from his parents. Relying on intuition can also take the place of legitimate arguments. Have you ever asked someone, "How do you know X?" and had them reply, "I just know, okay?" In that case, the person is relying on what their intuition is telling them. Sometimes people rely on intuition because they can't actually find any logical reasons or evidence to support what they believe to be true. In other cases, people depend on intuition simply because they haven't bothered to actually do any of the work of finding reasons for their position. Perhaps their belief is something that was handed down to them by family members. For example, studies have shown that children often, at least initially, adopt the political party of their parents. Without having taken the time to research the parties, candidates, or issues, they simply identify as Democrat or Republican based on how their parents identify. Imagine you have a conversation with your friend after a recent election. You ask her, "So, why did you vote for candidate Miller?" She replies, "Well, he's a Republican, and I always vote Republican." "How come?" you ask. "Well, I don't know. I just think it's the better party. I mean, it's what my parents do, so I'm sure it's the right party for me." Now, it's entirely possible that there were very good reasons for your friend to vote for Miller, and good reasons for her to be a Republican. But in simply following her parents' footsteps, she hasn't done the research to figure out if that's the case. When someone makes a claim that relies on faith, it's not really an argument. Faith is the belief in something without evidence or proof of its truth. If a classmate tells you that she will finish her undergraduate degree in 3 years and work full-time, that's a leap of faith, not a logical argument. She may have confidence in her ability, but her claim is not based on proof. Your classmate believes what she wants to believe, no matter the reality. If another classmate says that he runs a 4-minute mile, but didn't prove it, would you believe him? If you believe in things purely on faith, it makes it hard to distinguish fact from fiction. Everyone holds beliefs based on faith. These are not amenable to logical analysis because they do not pose rational premises for the conclusion. Another important distinction is the one between arguments and explanations. Arguments offer resolution of a problem or issue. They are meant to be an answer or resolution for something that's in question. An argument attempts to support or prove a conclusion. On the other hand, explanations provide an account of how or why something has occurred. An explanation may be an argument, if the how or why it implies are in some way disputable, but that is not always the case. Sometimes an explanation is simply statements of facts or a sequence of events. For example, someone says, "Hey Jess, how did you get that big cut on your leg?" She replies, "Well, I was out running when a big dog came out of a yard all of a sudden. It startled me so much that I lost my balance, tripped over the curb, and fell, scraping my leg on the edge of the sidewalk." This isn't an argument. It's just an explanation of how Jess got cut. Now imagine an alternative response. "Well, I was out running when a big dog came out of a yard all of a sudden. It startled me so much I lost my balance, tripped over the curb, and fell, scraping my leg. See, this is why people need to keep their dogs under control. That dog should have been on a leash or behind a fence or something. It's the owner's fault I have this cut." In this case, Jess is offering both an explanation of how she cut her leg and an argument about how people should take care of their dogs. Sometimes, you may be presented with an argument that is, in fact, an argument, but some parts of the argument don't really belong. They might even be filler, made by someone who believes that a larger volume of words is more persuasive. In addition to being on the lookout for non-arguments, you should also be attentive to irrelevant premises, claims that are included in an argument but have no bearing on the conclusion that is proposed. Sometimes, irrelevant premises are included because the person making the argument believes that they are, in fact, relevant. Part of your job in analyzing arguments is to evaluate the relevance of premises. But at other times, irrelevant premises are used deliberately as a way of appealing to someone's emotion, intuition, or other non-rational bases, or are included in order to make an argument seem stronger than it really is. If someone puts in their application for a master's program that they need a scholarship because everyone in their family who has applied to the program in the past has gotten a scholarship, that's an irrelevant premise. The fact that others in their family have received scholarships is irrelevant. It has nothing to do with their qualification to receive one. Critical thinking requires evaluating and analyzing arguments to determine how strong or weak they are. You must examine premises and assess their truth or acceptability, their relevance, and their sufficiency in supporting the conclusion. But in the bigger picture, another crucial task is to figure out whether someone has actually presented you with an argument, a consideration of a problem or issue in which a conclusion is supported or proven by rational premises. You should be wary of overt attempts to persuade or sway you.